Hello everybody. Today we will talk about Jordan. The modern state of Jordan is a very well-known country, but not many people realize that it was established illegally at the expense of the Jewish people. Here's how it happened. After the fall of the Ottoman Empire, the region was divided into three mandates: Syria, Iraq, and Palestine. Territory of the modern Jordan was included in the Mandate of Palestine. Everything was going well, Palestine's borders were marked, sovereignty for it was transferred to the Jews, and given some time the Jewish home in Palestine would have been reconstituted. But then Lord Curzon and Churchill became responsible for the administration of the mandate, and despite the fact that the draft mandate was already submitted on December 6, 1920, and was already in effect, this new administration decided to postpone the official submission of the mandate to the League of Nations. I'm not going to speculate about why they did so, I'm just stating the facts, it's up to the viewer to decide. After 2 years they have submitted a revised version of the original mandate in which they have changed few things in order to deprive the Jewish people from their rights. Judging from these quotes, it is safe to assume that Lord Curzon did not really like the Jews. As a result, Article 25 was added and the mandate was submitted, then approved on 24th of July 1922. Which among other things stated that it may postpone or withhold application of such provisions of the mandate as he may consider inapplicable to the existing local conditions. And they have separated the administration of Transjordan from the administration of Palestine by submitting the Transjordan Memorandum on 16th of September 1922. Now let's examine this separation from legal perspective. By looking at Article 2, we can see that this article was violated. First, because now there will be no more Jews at all in this part of Palestine, not to talk about establishing their national home in there. Also in this article, it states that civil rights of all inhabitants of Palestine were to be protected. Now it was definitely violated when Jews were transferred from Transjordan and were not allowed to settle there anymore. By looking at Article 4, we can see that it was also violated. No more Jewish agency in this part of Palestine, no more Jewish national home, and while the interests of the Jewish people were not respected at all anymore. Now, Article 5 was also violated a little bit later when Transjordan was placed under the rule of Faisal's brother Abdullah. They had no right to do so, not only under the provision of the mandate, but also under the rules of international law. Mainly, delegatus non potest delegare, meaning that a delegate cannot delegate, signifying that a person or a body in whose favor powers have been delegated cannot in turn delegate the same powers to another. Article 6 clearly states that Britain is to help Jews to immigrate to Palestine and settle everywhere on the land. Instead, Britain deprived the Jewish nation of almost 80% of their territory. Article 7 states that Jews should be the ones who get the citizenship in Palestine. Instead, in this part of Palestine, it was said to be the opposite. Now Arabs would get citizenship and the Jews would be deported. Article 15 was also clearly violated. It states that no person that lives in Palestine will be discriminated and no person will be excluded from Palestine. Then again, Jews were. The whole basis to the separation of Jordan is laid in Article 25, while it states, provided that no action shall be taken which is inconsistent with the provisions of Articles 15, 16, and 18. And yet, Article 15 is violated. Now, this doesn't mean that this article gives the right to violate any other articles. It just means that this article was expected to come in contradiction to the mentioned articles, and it was ensured that it will not. However, it did, and not only that it has violated Articles 2, 4, 5, 6, and 7 that were not mentioned, but it also violated Article 15, which was supposed to prevent anything like this from happening. Everything that has anything to do with the Jews was removed from the provisions of the Transjordanian Memorandum. The whole sentence of to facilitate the acquisition of Palestinian citizenship by the Jews who take up their permanent residence in Palestine was removed from Article 7. And the following articles, 4, that was talking about Jewish agencies, Article 6 that was talking about Jewish immigration, Articles 13 and 14 that were talking about religious issues were removed. This has also completely violated the San Remo Resolution, which has defined Palestine, all of it, as a sovereign territory of the Jews, which was recognized in international law. Which brings us to the Article 22 of the League of Nations that was also violated. Article in which the sovereignty as historical connection of the Jews to Palestine was not given, but recognized in international law as de jure. In other words, the Jews were a sovereign nation in Palestine for over 3,000 years already. What League of Nations did was just formally recognize this fact and embedded it into international law. This being said, we can see that all of those violations were against the Jewish nation, but surprisingly, this was also in violation of the rights of the Arabs that were living in Transjordan. If we take a closer look at Article 22 of the League of Nations, we will see that the sole idea of the mandate was to give independence to the local people. Transjordan was separated from Palestine, but was not given to the local population. It was given to Abdullah ibn Hussein, the son of the Sheriff of Mecca. He was born in Mecca, which is over 2,000 kilometers, around 1,200 miles away from Jordan. All of this was done for political reasons and was built on lies. I do not like politics, and I try to stick to the facts in order to discover the truth. So I will not discuss the political reasons that were behind the separation of Transjordan. However, I will prove that it was built on a lie. In the white paper of 1922, that was also called the Churchill Memorandum, it was stated that supposedly the British government has promised some Arab delegation in 1915 that an independent Arab national government will be set up in Palestine. Even if that was true, who said it should be 80% of Palestine? Now, there are a few serious problems with this as well. Britain had no right promising any land of Middle East to anyone. Reason for it is that Britain did not own the lands in 1915, nor did it own them afterwards. It belonged to the four Allied powers: Britain, Italy, Japan, and France. As I've explained in another video, this was also the reason why Sykes-Picot Agreement was annulled. Parties had no right to divide lands that they did not possess. Also, the so-called promise that was supposedly made to the Arabs was presented as the McMahon's Pledge. Allegedly, Sir Henry McMahon in 1915 has promised Palestine or parts of it to the Sheriff of Mecca, the future King Hussein. On the screen is a document that was issued by Henry McMahon himself, and here he is clearly stating that there was no intention of giving any independence to the Arabs in Palestine, and that Hussein understood it very well. So you can clearly see now that it was a lie. The state of Jordan was built on Jewish land, and it was established illegally. The sole reason for its establishment was a bold lie, a lie that led to the situation where in 1948 the illegal state of Jordan broke the law and attacked the newborn state of Israel and occupied Judea and Samaria. Jordanian sovereignty over Judea and Samaria was never recognized in international law. They have occupied the lands for about 19 years, creating a situation in which this part of Palestine, which is the heart of the whole country and which is located at the very center of it, is considered to be a disputed territory. Today, some even claim that Jews are the ones who illegally occupied Judea and Samaria. Please listen to the sentence: Jews illegally occupy Judea. It's like saying that Germans are illegally occupying Germany. But I guess it's okay. I guess that one lie leads to another, right? Thank you for watching.